Welcome to Spaghetti Moon's character modelling in Blender. This tutorial aims to get you comfortable with modelling in Blender by taking you through a step-by-step guide to model a humanoid character. The model you make from this tutorial will be carried through to a series of other tutorials to show you practical application of further aspects such as texturing, materials, lighting, bone structures, armature, animation and rendering. In this tutorial we're going to model the humanoid, as I said, a character from some illustration I did myself called Bob the Zombie. Most of the time, whenever you are modelling a character like this, you'll need to have some kind of reference image for symmetry and detail. It's always a good idea to have reference images, as it can speed up your workflow and make the end product a lot more accurate. The best way to go about this is to set up the images onto planes in the viewport for when you're modelling. The reference images I did are just a quick sketch, and there should be a file provided along with the video tutorial. You can use your own though, the general principles should remain the same. A few things you must remember though when making your own reference images is to make sure that the different images' key positions are level. For example, the eyes need to be at the same level, and the knees and the feet, and it needs to be generally the same size, or ratio anyway. Once you've cropped your images, I use GIMP, keeping the height the same to avoid too many problems cropping up. You can put them into Blender. So let's start with the front view. Let's get rid of that cube quickly. Oops. There we go. And we'll start with the front view, which is numpad 1. There we go. And click on background image in the view, and you'll see that this pops up thing, this background image window. Click on use background image to bring up the options, and to load the image up, click on this little folder. And then just navigate to your on the front one, so we want bobfrontref.jpg, and boom, you can see that pops up there. And the reason why it's in half is because we're only going to be modelling one half and then mirroring it and joining it together so it's symmetrical. Okay, well now we need another viewport for the side view, so let's split the screen. Right mouse button along here and move your mouse until this little double arrowed cursor pops up, and then click split area, and numpad 3 to go in the side view. You see we've got the same image, but since it's another viewport we can change the image and it won't affect the front view. So we want side view. Right, you can see that that's actually a little bigger. We'll sort that out in a second. I'll just talk about the different effects we have here. The blend effects sort of affects the alpha, and you can change it to less or more depending on which one you prefer. It's all a matter of preference really. Size, pretty self-explanatory, affects how big or small the image is. Offset changes the location of it. As I said a second ago, you should make sure that both reference images are the same size. As you can see from the side view, is actually a lot bigger than our front view. If you look at the actual grids, we need it to be 4 like that, but it's not, it's a lot bigger. So we can use this size to lower it until it's pretty much the same. I found 2.1 lined up fine when I did the test. Should be okay. Yep, as you can see, use a 3D cursor to line them up fine, and where we're going to be creating our object in the next tutorial. That's how you set up the reference images. You can mirror our front view to make a more symmetrical image to model with. Use with, say, Photoshop or GIMP to give you a complete reference if it makes you feel more comfortable in the modelling process. In the next video we'll start the modelling. On this character we're going to start from the foot upwards. We'll model half of Bob and then mirror the first half and join the two pieces together to create an even and symmetrical model. The reference images we're using are pretty rough and slightly disproportionate. That's because they were sketched rather hastily, but we can remedy that when we go into the modelling. As I said, we'll start from the foot up. You could start from the torso and extrude out, but techniques are always different with different people. So put your 3D cursor at Bob's foot by left clicking, and then line it up using both the images. Yeah, that'll be fine. Okay, and we'll just add the cube, add a mesh, or polygon mesh, cube, go to add mesh cube, there we go, and your cube should pop up and you should be in edit mode. Quickly I'm just going to change the material so it's easier for you to see. There we go, red should be fine. Okay, and we'll scale that down a bit so it's about right and line it up. S for scale, G to grab and move, and we'll probably want to make that a bit more rectangular. That'll do. So scale and then scale along the y-axis to do that. Okay. Okay. Press tab and go into edit mode if you aren't already. Now we need to make this cube a little more complex so we can sculpt it into a foot. So now, as long as you've got the entire mesh selected, if you haven't, you press A, select all, and press W, and you can click or press ROM to subdivide. And now we've got an extra vertical edge loop and one horizontal. We don't want any more horizontal ones really, we don't add any more detail than we have to. So for the next one, we'll just, as long as we're in edge mode, which we should be, yep, border box select, B for box select, and then we'll go and subdivide multi and choose 2, which is similar to subdivide except for you choose the amount of loops, and there you go, that should be fine for our blocking out of the foot. I'll make sure you're in wire mode by pressing Z, so you can select all the elements hiding behind others in your orthographic view. Now Control Tab into vertex mode, make sure you're in wireframe mode, and select this horizontal loop with the box select, B for box, and lower it. You can use this transform tool, you press G and Z to move it along the Z axis. So that should be fine for that. Generally you'll do most of your sculpting with the vertices, so you'll always be switching between modes with modifiers or different views. We need a lot more detail on the foot, so we're just going to start blocking it out. Okay. Oops. Alright. Okay. So A to deselect whatever you've got selected, B for box select, and then just do a bit of modelling. Just block out your foot now, using the reference image as a reference, surprisingly. And you need to think about where this is going to be bending as well. So, this is going to be modelling without toes, we'll probably add those in on a more detailed pass. It's just a foot, so it'll probably be more like a shoe than anything. I'll move this down a bit more actually. And let's start on the ankle. Won't do the ankle in this tutorial, we'll just block out the foot and then the ankle will be a part of the leg. Yeah, that's no good, is it? Okay. Just move those lot down. Yeah, it's looking more like a shoe than anything. But I think that will suffice for what we need to do for now. Oops. Okay, it's not entirely lined up with the reference image, but that's not too important really. Okay, and also need to go into front view and do some tweaking, otherwise it'll just end up looking like a beveled block or a shaped block. Anyway, right, first off we need to add a curve to the arch, Now we're going to duplicate our leg and mirror the duplicate to join two meshes together to start on our torso, basically creating the trunk that we're going to extrude from. This bit can be frustrating and very tricky if you're not used to these kind of operations, so make sure you save, so if you make a mistake you can go back and fix the problem. Right, now bottom is looking a bit flat there, so whoops, wrong one. Go into edit mode and we can sort that out. If you haven't already sorted it out, I assume you would have on your own, doing your own detail passes, just to create a bit of a more rounded tushy. And it's better to do it now than later because we're gonna have two sets of vertices to worry about. Don't worry too much about the details. Plenty of time. You'll have plenty of time to sort all of this out. Anyway, let's start on the actual joining of new meshes and duplication of new meshes. We're going to want to extrude a tiny little bit around here, so go into face mode, Control Tab, select face, and select these ones. I think what I want to do is move those so they're a bit flatter. So scale, that'll probably snap and not. Yeah, go into vertex mode to do that one. That's actually looking alright. Doesn't have to be dead on, because we're going to be merging the two, essentially. Okay. Now we're ready to duplicate our mesh, so come out of edit mode by pressing tab or in object mode. Shift D to duplicate, and you see we've got a new leg there, but right click to cancel the move operation. And then press S to scale, X for the axis we're going to do it on, then -1. And that will flip our leg round, so we've got one over here too. And since we started off right here as a cube, the pivot point is actually right at the foot. To remedy that, just left click to bring the cursor up to where you want to be able to use the transform tool, which I use quite a lot. And then there's a little handy tool here in the edit buttons called center cursor, and I don't know if you saw that, but the pivot point is now centered where you relocated the 3D cursor. So we can move that lot along now, and we want it to be pretty much overlapping. Really want to turn off the mesh smooth, and so we'll just go that and turn off that, and then do the same for that one, just so we've got a more accurate way of looking at where they're going to overlap. That looks okay. So now we're going to join the two meshes. So select one mesh and then right shift click another one and press Ctrl J, and it'll ask if you want to join the meshes, which we do, so press OK for that. And when you go into edit mode, you'll see they are all part of the same mesh now. And going to wireframe mode, you can border select those, or box select, sorry. And we're going to want to bring those together, so scale X, that should be fine. There's a handy little tool in the mesh tools over here called remove doubles, which will get rid of any unwanted superfluous vertices, so click that, and that will remove 4. I'm not sure if that's all of them. 1, 2, 3, no, that's not. Some of them haven't joined, I don't think. Over here. I'm not sure if we want to. Let's have a look. Did we delete those faces? Because there's our problem. We should have deleted those faces there, not the ones these two here. Oh, that's causing problems already, so I'll just go back. It's an easy mistake to make, to forget to do something like that, so no more steps undo. Damn. Oh, we should be able to select those faces fairly easily. There we go. See, if we didn't delete those, that actually has caused problems when we're trying to remove the doubles, because still Now, just before we start extruding, I'll make a quick extra pass around it to sort out anything like the trunk and the belly. I have already done a little bit. We had an ugly cleft around there, which wasn't, well, it looked completely unnatural, so I used these vertices here and pulled it out a bit. And you might want to have a look around, flesh out the behind a bit more. And yeah, sort out this cleft here, because you're obviously going to want a little bit, but you want to keep it rounded to avoid a weird looking torso. And since we've got a bunch of faces at the top here, we're going to extrude from these, and it's simply another series of extrude, move, scales and rotates, while keeping in mind the evenly spaced faces, and try to keep the waist as rounded and also keeping the faces as evenly spaced as we can. Since we've probably got enough detail around the groin for bending, the centre of the back is pretty much our next stop, and around just above and here, and then we'll hit the shoulders, but we won't do too much modelling on that right now. We'll do the arms first and then do the shoulders. So because my sketch is fairly basic, you need to take a bit of a license yourself and model it how you see fit. This is just a reference, an outline. Okay. So a couple of extrudes here, I think we'll do. A few scales. Bob hasn't got a very big belly at all. It's not looking quite right, is it? Even with the modifier on it. Just scale that quickly. See, Bob's got a very low waist. Yeah, got some nasty bumps there. Just try and even those out a bit. There we go, it's a bit better. Don't like the way that's looking. Stop with it. That's a bit better. And seems to be a little dent there. I was looking a little chubbier than I'd like him to. That's a bit better. Okay, back to extruding. Yeah, okay. So, we're going to extrude up to about there, I reckon. Let's do 2. Scale it out a bit. And here we want to add a bit more detail. So this is where the back kind of arches a bit usually. So let's do a bit of rotation and we go to extrude. Let's start making the rib cage a bit, making that a bit wider. Extrude. Oh, we need a couple of extrudes and then we're going to hit the armpits. I think that's looking alright. Whoops. Okay, and how many more extrudes to the armpits? Let's give it 2. Let's go crazy. confusing. We're going to be cutting the mesh in half again. We're doing this because we want to extrude our arm without the hassle of doing all the extra work of selecting one side, going to the other, selecting the same vertices or faces. It's just a lot quicker this way, and since our model is symmetrical, we can just duplicate and mirror it straight after we finished. Or we'll be doing something a little different though. We'll be creating a mesh with the same data, so both sides will be modelled at the same time. But we'll go into that in a second. First off, we're just going to cut the mesh up. So go into edit mode if you're not already, and control up on the front viewport so it fills up your screen. Control tab into vertex mode, Z to a wireframe, and select the right half of Bob, left to our left, and we should be able to grab all the box select Alt to take a minus selection, and just delete, and vertices, and that should be the lot. I hope I didn't miss any. No, that's all, and we got a nice half of our model again. Out of edit mode and into object mode, and instead of pressing Shifty like we did last time, create a duplicate mesh that's separate that we joined up. This time we're going to create a duplicate mesh that shares the same data as the one we're actually modelling on, so it's more like a real-time mirror. Very handy. So Alt D instead of Shift D, and we've got a duplicate again. Right click to cancel the moving operation, scale and X -1, and that basically mirrors our object. Move it along so it doesn't overlap so much. Not that it's very important right now because we're not joining them. And you'll see when we go into edit, the meshes will move as one, or alter as one as we do our differences. Well, we're going to start on the arm now, but we're going to need to create an edge loop for the arm because I'm going to want a bit more control over the vertices. That we can't really round out a square block that we do that without creating some ugly geometry, so we're just going to create a whole new loop down that side of the body. So it's very simple and very handy doing a loop cut, as it's known in Blender. So to go to the menu, press K and click on loop cut, or Control R like it says there, the shortcut, and that's the one we want, dead center down there. And we could just move it about a bit, and then click again to confirm the operation, and we've got ourselves a nice symmetrical loop that goes all the way around. Okay, now we're going to do some extruding from these four faces here, and we're going to be creating the shoulder. Okay, we need to flatten them out a bit, so scale on the x-axis. That's much better. Okay, so extrude just a little bit to create our first part of the shoulder, and we'll run this out first off before we do anything else to prevent it from us creating a blocky arm. Okay, I think. As you can see, it's extruded slightly over there, mirrored it. Okay, now let's move that up a bit to create a nice bulk of a shoulder. I'll rotate it slightly because we need it sort of sweeping. We need a kind of sweeping arc round here for the shoulder so it can rotate freely, and well, because this is a very tricky part a lot of the time. Don't worry if you don't get it right first time. It's very hard to create good working shoulders there. Can be very frustrating. So extrude again. Scale. Move it along a bit. Rotate. We could do the arm straight out like that, and we also need to think about the position that's going to be made there. I did it facing upwards, but since we're not really going to be modelling the hand here, I'm going to actually just use that as a basic reference to the shape that I'd like, and I'm going to model it directly, diagonally, to avoid causing too many problems. One more extrude, I think, for the shoulder. Probably scaled that last one a bit too much. Alright, so you're probably fairly comfortable with creating extrusions and detail for joints on a model, so blocking out his hand won't be too complicated. It's a fairly simple task, and I'll leave most of the detail to you. There's just a few things that I'd like to show you. I've loaded up a reference image of my hand, as you can see, from a while ago when I was modelling a hand. You should be able to download this image from for yourself from spaghettimoon.co.uk in the download section, along with this tutorial. We're going to model a basic palm, thumb, finger, and then duplicate, scale, and join the remaining fingers. The reference image isn't quite as good as I'd like it. I would prefer the fingers to be a bit splayed, but we'll just have to make do. So we've got a primitive cube. I've made a few cuts here just to make it a bit easier to model with. This should be fairly simple for you. Use the Ctrl-R loop cut tool. Okay, let's start off with just blocking out the basic shape. So Z to go into wireframe mode so we can see what we're doing, and box select, and whoop, got soft selection on there. I don't want that on at all. Okay, so remember that we've got a wrist to extrude after this, so leave these vertices around here ready for an extrusion. It doesn't have to be dead on, it's just for the general shape, and we'll add a lot of the detail probably without the reference image in the end. So just going to whiz through this quickly. That's probably where our thumb will be coming out. Around here, probably from there. Alright, we've got pretty much basic outline before we need to add a sort of arch to the palm. Okay, that's alright, I guess. Let's just yeah, I think that'll be okay. It's definitely going to need a lot of tweaking though. So let's start off with that slight curve to the bottom. I'm going to just change it to a colour that's a bit easier for you to see. Good old red again. Okay. Right, I'm going to try was up. Okay. If we just do a little movement up like that. That bit up again from the sort of part of your thumb. Yeah, we'll just arch the top a slight as well. Ever so slightly. Probably make this more pronounced when we come to make a more detailed past of the entire thing. Alright. Let's just create the thumb, because that's the one of the main parts, because we're going to be duplicating the fingers and attaching them. So let's start straight off. Let's extrude. Oops. Oh dear. I'm not entirely happy with that. Let's use those two. Okay. So more extruding, moving, scaling, rotating. I think we're going to list this quite small so we can leave the majority of the scaling until afterwards. Oops. Again, we're going to want to arch it around like we did with the shoulder. There. Oops. Again, it doesn't have to be dead on. Okay, now we're going to add the rest of the fingers and a little bit of detail too. Right, so first off, we need to inset the faces of where we're going to be adding the fingers, and then we'll delete them. So, extrude individual faces. Good. Scale them down a bit as well. I think that's about right. And then just delete the faces. Delete faces. Okay. Now we go to the tricky part, and we might want to get rid of the background image in a second. So wireframe and vertices. Select all the vertices of the finger you've already done. Make sure you've got all of them, otherwise you can end up with some nasty. I think that's a lot of them. Yeah, that should be okay. And Shift D to duplicate it, and boom, you've got yourself a new finger. If you rotate it, scale it slightly, this is just for the index finger. And what we're going to do now is we've got to line up these vertices where they should join, and that could be a bit tricky, but we'll try and do our best. Probably. Oops. Okay. Probably a good idea is to. No, it's not a good idea to scale between them because that actually warp the original mesh. So we just move them ourselves, because these won't actually line up. They'll probably still be a bit too high or too low. All the same. Where we can turn off that. Oops, turn off that for now. Make things a little bit easier for us. And what we're going to do is just remove the doubles, and that will create a nice closed mesh for us. We'll probably have to put up the limit that it... See, look, yeah, that's a bit too high, really. And just move it down. Very easy. It's not quite... We might be able to get away with that if we raise the limits somewhat. So we go to, in the edit panel, go to remove doubles. We'll put the limit up a bit, which is the space that it will they'll weld them together. So remove doubles, remove 10, I think that's a lot of them. We'll just check, put the modifier back on, and voila, we've got our finger there, pretty seamless as well. Don't even have to flip the normal. Yep, that's okay. Okay, I'm not going to do each one because that would waste time and make the file bigger. So I'm just going to fade out here, and then we can go into the detail. Now I've done a quick pass to the hand and added the knuckles where they weren't before by using the loop cut tool. That's Control and R, just like this. One there, bringing it up, and one there, bringing it down. And what we have to do really, oops, go into edge mode, is just bring the knuckles up slightly, move them back a bit to even it out. Again, it's not hugely important, it's just good to have a little bit of a extra put into your model. I really should have put these in on the first pass of the hand, but it must have slipped my mind. So we're just finishing that off. There we go. And that should be okay. I barely see them, but it's not hugely important right now. All we're going to do now is another thing about when you're merging the vertices and removing doubles. Okay, I've gone over the hand once more, added the tendons from the edges we made with the knife cuts, extruded a small wrist and generally cleaned the mesh up a bit. And here we've got our body again. I've deleted the mirror mesh that we were using before. All we have to do now is add it to our body, which we're going to use the append command and bring it in to our scene. We'll have to do a bit of scaling and rotating, and then we'll join the two up. You should have named your hand in the edit buttons, so it'll be easier to append. So where is it? Hand finished blend. And we go to there. Oh, sorry, you should have gone to append or shift F1 and choose your scene that you made it from. Mine particular one was hand finished blend. And go to object, and if you named it, it should be something like hand. So, and there we got it. It's a lot bigger right now because we modelled it bigger. But that shouldn't be a problem, so rotate it, rotate it on the Z 90 degrees to make it face the right way. Grab it and scale it until it's about the right size. That looks about right. Maybe a tiny bit bigger. Anyway, shift right click the other mesh and Control J. That doesn't join the meshes, that just makes them a part of one object. In fact, I'm going to undo that for now. Whoops. I'll redo that. There we go. So, now they're part of the same mesh. Anyway, I should have really rotated that a bit more, should have thought about that. Back until they're separate meshes, right. So we'll rotate that along the y-axis, and you can see that they're completely different right now. And we're going to have to remember to delete our faces. I'll just do that quickly. There we go. I'll do the same on the other mesh. There we go. 2, 3, 4. Faces. Okay. Just move that up a bit more. In fact, let's just move these down. That's going to be a bit of a... This can be a bit tricky. It's just all a matter of lining up. And then you've got to think of whether this is going to look good or not. Right on, but we'll give it a go anyway. Oh, I'm going to move that mesh a tiny bit more up into the... There we go. That's a bit better. Okay, shift right click, Control J to join the meshes or make them part of the same object. And now we've got the tricky business of getting these two, all these vertices to their other parts. I'm just selecting the both of them and scaling. This can be awkward. In fact, I'm going to turn off this subsurf completely because this is proving to be somewhat tricky. Oops. Okay. See, I've misjudged the amount of vertices I'm going to need, which isn't that disastrous. We can just create some more. A little loop cut maybe. I'll just knife it again. Fairly simple. So we need 1, 2, and we're going to need the same on the bottom. So midpoints, knife. I'll do the same underneath. Midpoints, knife it. There we go. Yeah, there I've got enough vertices.